how did I get here? In other words, how did I end up riding a Spyder? But anyway, yeah, I got into the Spyders in a very unusual way. And I'll go back to the beginning of things. So growing up, I was a really active kid. I played lots of sport. If there was sport going, I was playing it. Did athletics, all that sort of stuff. Predominantly a runner, and mostly 100, 200, 400, with 400 metres being my specialty event, because I wasn't quite quick enough to compete at a decent level at the 100, but at the 400 I could reach state level sort of comp, so I was a reasonable sort of runner, and that continued on through my early adult life. I played Australian rules football, even though I was born and bred in Queensland, and my parents were not from Victoria, they were Queenslanders as well. But I got involved in AFL football through a brother-in-law from a very young age, so I played that at a pretty reasonable level, and used my running abilities as my strength, which was really good. And played a bit of senior football at 15 because I could run and had good skills, and then when I started work, I stopped playing footy for a tiny little bit of while, but especially when I got into Air Force. First couple of years I was in Air Force, I didn't play any footy at all. I just did lots of running and lots of cycling to keep fit. And did a little bit of sort of hobby triathlons just for fun. I was a terrible swimmer, but I was a good runner and rider, so I'd be used to do them at the base at Ambley, and I'd be last out of the pool. But by the end of it, I was up towards the front, because I'd pass a whole heap on the run and then knock over a fair few on the ride. So leg strength was a big part of my armour. So I continued the running bit when I took up umpiring Aussie rules football, and I did that at a fairly decent level. I did state league in Queensland and also in the ACT New South Wales comp, umpired some Brisbane Lions reserve grade games during their successful era in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then I moved down to Wagga, did some umpiring there, went across to Canberra, I only did 1 year in Canberra of umpiring until my daughter was born, and but I did state league there, did some Swans reserve grade games just before they were really successful and won their premierships in I think it was 05 or 06 they won them, might have been 05 they won. But yeah, I umpired it down there until about 2004. I then took up cycling a little bit more seriously, and I used to ride to work every day and run laps of the ACT lake every lunchtime, or if I went away for work, I'd take my runners with me, and minimum 5k of a morning, so we were doing somewhere between 5 and 9k every time we ran, and running it at a reasonable clip, as you'd expect with some Air Force guys, that we were doing okay. Anyway, eventually I moved to Toowoomba in late 2007, and in early 2008 I thought, I've got to do something. I might try umpiring footy again. Anyway, I went, oh gosh, I've got one young child and another one on the way, and I thought the travel was going to be just terrible. Some of the games were 3.5 hours away, and they expected you to umpire more than just the seniors. They expected you to do 3 games for the day, including the seniors, just all by yourself. And I went, man, I'm in my early 40s here. This is gonna bust me. It's a young man's game trying to do that sort of thing. So I said to him, look, thanks very much, but no thanks. So I had to find something else to keep me fit. So got back on the bike again, which was a flat bar roadie, as they call them, flat bar road bike. So a bit of a hybrid sort of thing, but with skinny-ish wheels, which I put on in Canberra to get me a bit quicker across the ground. And anyway, I went riding it one day, and eventually I ended up with 2 flat tyres somehow down the middle of Toowoomba in town one morning before work. So 2 flat tyres, repaired those, and where I repaired them was right outside of a bike shop. So I thought, oh, I need some more tubes, I'll go there in the afternoon. So that afternoon I went down to the bike shop, and when I got there, they said, oh, you should come on some of our rides that we have on Saturday mornings. I went, oh yeah, no worries, I'm reasonably fit, I'll go on a ride with you. No, I was not bike fit compared to what these guys were, but yeah, the first couple of them, I thought I was going to spew up a lung. I'd really hurt, especially on a heavy flat bar road bike, and these guys were on, carbon fibre and really lightweight alloy at worst bicycles, and I thought, oh, I've got to get something different. So I sold the flat bar and bought myself a road bike and joined in with them, and that started call it an obsession. I think anybody who's ever done any road cycling will understand that road cycling is a bit of an obsession. You've got to be, otherwise you're going to be very, very average at it. So this hill that I'm going up now, and it's a fair hill, this was one of the ones that we'd come riding out on a regular basis of a morning before work. I was knocking over 40 kilometres on a weekday before work. Before I knew it, I was doing 70 to 100 Ks every Saturday and every Sunday. And Mondays and Fridays was my rest day, my 2 rest days for the week. So I was doing somewhere between about 10 and 12,000 kilometres a year on a push bike at one stage, and loving it. Great group of people, and I say people because there was ladies that cycled with us as well, and they did really well. We looked after them, things like that, and made sure that they didn't take too much of a turn on the front, and that they could just tuck in behind, because you do a third less work when you're tucked in behind, especially with a group. So, and the people that I rode with were just bloody awesome people. They really were, and still are brilliant people. Anyway, I was a bit late getting to the group one Saturday morning, and I was coming up to looking to go back and do a little bit of racing on the bike. Now, as I said, I was a reasonable sort of athlete running wise, but cycling wise, by the time I got doing this stuff, I was in my mid-40s, and some of these young blokes, they were freaks, and especially because they were little blokes, they could climb like unbelievable, and I was just on 6 foot and 80 kilos. I was a power athlete, not a skinny little ride up hills thing. So I was the guy that you stick on the front to break the breeze sort of thing. So anyway, I missed the group one Saturday morning, and I decided to go by myself. Anyway, I went by myself, and I went out in a specific direction. And I don't remember much of it. I think there's only a couple of spots that I do remember of the ride on the day. And I remember going out in a particular direction. The idea was that once I got to a certain point, I was just going to spin a certain cadence. So rather than looking to sit on a certain speed, I was looking to keep my my legs spinning at a certain cadence, and I think it was about 95 RPM, 95 to 100, round there. And I had a really good GPS which measured everything, measured where I was, my speed, and measured my cadence on my pedals and all that. So I was just basically keeping an eye on that to make sure I kept that up. You know, I remember one small bit that I do remember is going through this one little town just out of Toowoomba, and a couple of guys who were swapping off on turns, they went past me, and I thought, oh, I should jump on the back of these guys, and I went, no, I won't do that. I want to push my own pedals today. In other words, I don't want to suck their breeze and sort of just get in behind and use their pedal. I want to use my own. The idea was that I wanted to get myself really fit for coming up to a little bit more racing, and I was only racing at a fairly low level, just locally, but I wanted to be a bit fitter than what I was, and by going out and doing it my own, I was going to be okay, and I was going to chuck in a couple of hills on the way back just to make sure that I was going to be a good workout for myself. Anyway, it was about a 70-kilometre ride, and I got it from what I could tell, because once again, can't remember any of it other than pictures and looking at my GPS later. I got to a point where I was about halfway through the ride, so I was about 35k into the 70k ride, and I must have been doing okay, because apparently I held these two blokes, because they almost got involved in the whole situation as well. They were about 40 to 50 metres ahead of me, which was what my intent was. What I remember that much when they went past was, don't sit behind them, leave them a distance, and almost use them like a lure to keep me trying to catch up to them. So I did that, but I got to a certain point, and I was on a very long, flat, straight stretch of road, and you can see on the side of the road here that there's a shoulder up past the white line. There's tar there. Well, it was probably 3 times the width of that. It was almost like an extra lane on the side of the road, and I was out on that. I know I was out on that because A, I always rode on that bit of the road, and B, my GPS, which was fairly accurate, once I did get it back eventually, downloaded the data and it showed where I was. And I got hit from behind by this one's for the people with a strong stomach. I got hit from behind by a B-double truck, so that's an 18-wheeler for our American friends, but it was a B-double truck, hit me from behind. He was doing about 80 to 100 kilometres an hour, so 50 to 60 mile an hour, somewhere in that range, and he ejected me. He must have come outside the white line, and he's ejected me into the grass. I should really be, basically wheels up, as I'd say, but I somehow managed to survive. However, I didn't get away scot-free. You never do if a truck hits you from behind at a fair rate of knots. I ended up with a spinal cord injury down low, and all the spinal cord in what they call the quarter equina, which is where it all comes out from the lower spinal area through your pelvis, because my pelvis had more breaks than a Kit Kat. It was a terrible mess. They wouldn't let me wait there for 3 months, so I was in hospital for a long period of time. So the first 3 months I was in hospital, I wasn't allowed to put weight on my pelvis or legs. I had to lay in bed, and it was terrible, bloody terrible. Lost a lot of weight because I couldn't eat, and it was pretty bad for me mentally. And I ended up spending 9 months in hospital, and then eventually got back home and realised I couldn't live in my house that I was living in at the time. So we moved. We actually moved out here to where I am right now, out at Highfields, and we lived in Highfields for 10 months while we were getting our current house built, which had to be suitable for me. So, and I was pretty well wheelchair. Most of the time was wheelchair. Very little walking on the sticks, because I was pretty weak. I got down to about 52 kilo. I could have ridden could have ridden a lightweight in the cup sort of thing, in the Melbourne Cup. I was pretty light, and for a guy at 6 foot, that's no meat on my bones. And if I can find a picture, I'll stick it up. I was pretty ordinary, you know. Show you some pictures of when I was, you know, running, cycling, and what I looked like compared to what I looked like when I was, you know, recovering in hospital. But yeah, it was pretty ordinary there. So I was a good 12 months before I was, you know, any good. And then I remember once in hospital, I was probably at my lowest point, and a mate came and visit me, and he was really good. He bought me a coffee because I was, you know, being a cyclist, you like good coffee. So had a decent coffee with him, because coffee at the hospital was, you know, be it the instant stuff they served you, or the stuff that you would get from, you know, the coffee shop. That was pretty ordinary, that was. I was stopping all of a sudden in the 100 zone. Yeah, but anyway, I was bought me a decent coffee, we had a good chat, and that was really good. That picked me up a little bit, and then straight away, after he'd gone rather, two of my old bosses from where I worked, I was working at that stage, I was a civilian working at an army base, working in what they call a SPO, a systems program office, so looking after the management of a fleet. My job was just before my accident I was human resources. Even though I came from a tech background, I got into human resources. I'd spent a fair while there, but my job had been made redundant in human resources, and because of my tech background, I've been in a tech assessor job, as they call it. So you were, you know, assessing the technical aspects of things from a logistics perspective. You know, and I'd been in that 3 weeks, not enough to know anything, just enough to go, oh, yeah, I'm here, and start to learn a new job, which was really good, because, you know, I didn't have to worry about the fact that I was redundant from my other job. I'd been shuffled across into this other one. So anyway, these two bosses came to visit me. They picked me up, which was really good, and, you know, and made me feel better. And the way that made me feel better is they actually said, oh, I can't wait for you to get back to work. I remember going, what do you mean, get back to work? They said, well, you know, you come back to work, you've got your wheelchair, you'll be fine, you know. You don't need to walk, you do your job. We want you for your brain and your cheery demeanour, and, you know, the fact you get in and have a crack, and, you know, just come back. When you come back to work, you'll be fine, you know. Come back slowly, just, you know, we're here waiting when you come back. So I'm like, oh, well, Jesus, I've got some worth. So anyway, I eventually got back to work, and when I got back to work, my tech assessor position had also disappeared. They decided to get rid of that part of the fleet that I was working on, being the Kiowa helicopters, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. You know, I'm in a wheelchair and not able to move very much. Don't know what my future holds, because I don't know if my job will be there and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, they said, hey, you've got a bit of a tech and admin background. Do you want to go and work over here with these simulator mob? They've just started this new group for training, to look after all of our training devices, like all our simulators and what they call synthetic training devices. So not just flight simulators, but simulation stuff for technicians and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, no worries, I'll head over there. So anyway, I started off at just 3 days a week, and it was only 3 hours a day, I think, and then eventually I built it up, and eventually I became full-time, which was really good. And then I got to a stage, I was sitting there one day, and I said to one of the guys I worked with, Luke, he's an awesome guy, just the best bloke. And I said, oh mate, I really miss cycling. I said, not the physical, you know, beating yourself to death, you know, pushing yourself physically. I said, but I miss the mental break that it gives me, because, you know, I was starting to work full time, and it was, when you work full time, you've got to have some sort of release from it. And I said, I really need to find something that replaces cycling. I said, I obviously can't do it. And by this stage, I'd started to to walk a bit on, two sticks or two crutches. And when I say a bit, if I walk 50 metres, and I'm still that way, if I walk 50 metres, I'm spent. 20 metres is about it, because the legs don't work properly and there's no feeling in the left one and all that sort of thing. And you think, hang on, how are you riding Spyder? Well, the Spyder's only got a right foot pedal and all my hands are all good, so I can get on and I can get off and away you go. But anyway, I said to my mate, oh, you ride a motorcycle? I said, what's that like? Do you take in all the views and all that sort of, because I'd never been a motorcyclist. I've been a motor enthusiast as a kid, and my brother and I were fairly involved because Dad was a mechanic, so we did a bit of work on our own cars and built go-karts as kids, and but it was more four-wheel motoring rather than two. And he said, yeah, he said, motorcycles, that's why I ride. He said, best stress relief you can find. And he said it's great. I remember he saying, great therapy. He said, it's not cheap therapy, but it's great therapy. And I went, oh, geez, I wish I could ride one. I said, but there's no way I could hold one up or change the gears because, the left leg doesn't work. And he said to me, oh, you need a Can-Am Spyder. To which my response was, what the is that? He ripped one up on his computer, showed a picture of it and said, this is what you need. And I went, that's what I need. So, and then the quest started. Eventually I couldn't get anyone locally. I got in contact with a few people locally because there was no group or anything, but I found a couple of people locally that had them just simply by spotting them on the road, stalking them, following them home and going, hey mate, can I have a look at your Spyder? Can I actually, no, it wouldn't let me jump on it. And the first one was an older one, so I'm glad I didn't jump on it because I don't think I would have bought one had I jumped on one. It was a 2008 one. By this stage it was sort of 2016, 2017, around there, late 2016. Anyway, so, no, it would have been early 2017 that I started looking. Anyway, I eventually bit the bullet and went, bugger it, I'm going down, because I had no licence, had no motorcycle licence. So I bit the bullet and I went down to Brisbane, just so I could see if I could get onto one, because that was the biggest thing. Can I get onto one? And I jumped onto it and I went, yep, I can get onto it, beauty. But I couldn't get onto the F3 because I couldn't balance on my left leg and throw my right leg over. And the F3's pegs and foot plates were too far forward for me to be able to sort of prop on my left leg, which I could sort of weight bear but not push up with. Just to basically, it acted like a bloody crutch, if anything, because I could just stiffen the knee through the quad and then I could jump on. So I could jump on the RT. So I went, okay, this is what I've got to get. I've got to get an RT. Had Pierre's plates, which I'll put a picture up of, had they been available at the time, and me knowing about them, because he didn't bring those out, I think, until about 2018. Maybe a bit later. I probably would have got an F3 because I like the shape and design of it. Although the F3s at that stage in 2017 didn't have a top box on, didn't come till 2018. But anyway, okay, I got to get an RT. So then I had to go through the process of trying to get a license. Can I get a license? Because no use trying to get a license, I couldn't get onto one. So I knew I could get onto one. Went through the, I'll call it the rigmarole, not rigmarole, but rigmarole, so frigging around. And eventually they let me get a license, get a learner's one. Right, beauty, that's all I need. Once I got the learners, I'm in the process. So bit the bullet, went down, bought a brand new RT. And I'll put a picture up there of the RT that I bought. And that began the process of riding a Spyder. My mate Luke, who'd said, yeah mate, you need to get one of these. He was fantastic. So he would come out of his way to my place, pick me up of a morning on the way to work, a couple of days a week, so that I could practice. And I would ride at the front, he would ride behind me, and he'd give me tips on cornering, Bluetooth up, change gear mate, don't change down, teach me how to use the gears for for a motorcycle, and it was very different. He had to ride the Spyder himself, so he could get a bit of an understanding. Scared the living daylights out of him, and so I learnt to ride the Spyder. But I learnt to ride from someone who was a fantastic instructor, wasted as a technician that he was, the background, and a very good project manager. But the guy was an outstanding instructor, and he was just awesome. Anyway, he taught me how to ride it, and from there I managed to get better at it and do more of it. But once I did my learners, got my license, and I was good to go. I could go my own way. And he went, "Mate, it's all yours. Do what you got to do. You don't need to ride with me anymore." And I went, "Excellent, ripper." So I started riding by myself. Found a group in Brisbane that I used to go to meet up with regularly, but it was a fairly long way to go down there and meet up with them. And I noticed that there was starting to be a few of them up here in the Toowoomba area. So as I did with the cycling group, because with the cycling group that I was involved with, I started the Facebook page for them, and got the group really rolling. They started the group, I just got it working better. I started the Facebook group locally and got people group riding with us so that they could get an understanding of it, because I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive in a way that I can't just half-ass do something. If I'm going to do something, I'll do it properly. Whether that be building something, putting something together, and that comes from a background of my dad as a really good mechanic who used to say, do it once, do it right, and then working on aircraft where you did everything by the book and you're really meticulous in how you do things. So as an aviation technician, and a qualified electrician, that was part of my background, and then also being a semi-professional athlete as a football umpire. That discipline style of things was, that self-discipline, because that's what discipline is. Discipline is self-discipline. It's not someone yelling at you. You've got to have self-discipline to survive in those environments. So, and I had a big dose of that. That was how I was brought up, was get involved, be community-minded, work hard, do it once, do it right, place for everything, all those wonderful lessons that I got taught from my parents that flowed through. And so I learned as much as I could about the Spyders, so that I could just basically understand what was happening with them. Still don't know everything. I'm a long way from that. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know the ins and outs. Like if someone said, there's a problem somewhere in the engine, I'd be going, yeah, good luck. That's my brother. He's the vehicle mechanic. That's the person you want to talk to there, not me. But I know how to check the belts and check everything over, and basically, get myself into and out of trouble. So I sort of became a bit of a subject matter expert in a way without wanting to be, but more so because just nobody wanted to help people with Spyder in Australia. A lot of the deals, especially in southeast Queensland, were pretty shite. They didn't know much about them. They knew everything about jet skis, but didn't really care about Spyders. So just basically find out for yourself. So this Spyder that I'm on now is my third Spyder. So I had the first one. I did about 52,000 Ks on the first one. And in a couple of years too, I was putting a lot of Ks onto it. Did a few longer trips down south, out west, and in between. So I did a bit of riding on it. Then I bought an F3 so I could put my wheelchair on the side of it, because whilst I can still walk a bit with sticks, once I'm off the bike of an evening, I really need a wheelchair. So that allowed me to take a little bit of weight off the legs on some of the day rides, which were longer rides, which was good. But some of the creature comforts that us Air Force people are used to, such as heated grips, was probably a big one, which is what I'm using right now on this cool morning. That was something that I really need that. I don't need it, but I really want. So I got the heated grips. I eventually went, okay, I've got to get an RT, so then I ended up with this RT, and I've done a fair few Ks on this one. I took the F3 to Tassie and back. That was probably the biggest trip I did. That did a couple of other ones, but that was the big one that I did. A mate still got it, and what I know, I think it's still going okay. He's looking to sell it now, but that's because he's looking to get into an F3 Limited, something with a bit more creature comforts himself. But yeah, it worked really well because it had the plates on the side of it for getting on and off, the ones that Pierre sells. So yeah, that's how I got into Spyder. I got here because I needed something which would replace what cycling was giving me. Before people go, oh, you're a bloody cyclist. Yeah, you can look at every group and go, there's good and bad. There was people that we rode with who went, oh, geez, can you just do the right thing, mate? So, and there's people in the motorcycle world, in the Spyder world, that I go, oh, mate, can you just don't be an idiot on your bike? Where I'm heading right now, down towards Esquay. I remember these three blokes who came on a ride down to there once, where we met up with a group. I brought a Toowoomba group down, and this other group came across from Brisbane with the north side deal, and apparently these three blokes were just idiots and dropping doughies everywhere and passing everyone. They were just knobs, and every group has those. So, but that's where I came from. So I was an athlete who eventually got into cycling. And needed something to replace that, and this is what it is. So it is good stress relief going for a ride. Like, you look at where I'm going through now, beautiful bit of road, really pretty place, beautiful blue sky. Yeah, it's a bit cool, but what's that saying? There's no such thing as bad weather, just poor choice of clothing. That's an old Air Force saying, probably a bit of an Army saying as well. Yeah, that's how I got into Spyder. And all right, well, I'm going to enjoy the ride down the Hampton-esque range. If I can get rid of these two cars in front of me, well, three cars in front of me, and I'll catch you a bit later on today when I get up into the Sunshine Coast hinterland, which should be absolutely spectacular.